welcome to another episode of Tell Me More. I'm not your usual host, but I am Dennis Wiles, and Luke Stehr will be hosting us today, and we have Ashley Berryhill as our guest, and we are dissecting and critiquing Elijah Brown's sermon from yesterday is what we'll be doing. You'll have a lot of fun listening and learning with us today, so welcome.
All right, well, Tell Me More time. And we have Ashley Berryhill with us again, which is such a treat.
It is.
Thank you.
So Katie has very graciously opted to have Ashley in this space since it's Missions Month, which is fun. So we're glad.
Yes.
But we had a really good Sunday at church yesterday. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about Sunday morning in a little bit, but last night we had Deck the Halls, first annual Deck the Halls. Great event. So much fun.
Yep.
Were you there?
No, I was not. I was at a board meeting.
This podcast is sponsored by First Baptist Arlington.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of events coming up for Christmas, don't we?
So the next major event is on December 8th, and that is at
5 o'clock.
5 p.m.
5 p.m.
5 p.m., December 8th, in the sanctuary. Illuminate.
Illuminate.
It's going to be awesome. Great Christmas musical. Our entire worship ministries are going to lead us. Of course, Sunday's the first Sunday of Advent, and
it is.
So we're going to start with a study of Isaiah, and we're going to let Isaiah point us to the Messiah, which he's actually really good at doing.
I love that.
And been doing that a long time, actually. And so excited about that. And we actually have Bible study lessons written for the adults by Ryan Chandler using the prophets. We just finished Bible study material written by Luke Stehr.
Our own Luke Stehr.
So, it's going to be a great Advent. So we're looking forward to it.
It's going to be good. Well, we also had a business meeting last night.
We did. We are on a journey of our church has approved the just continuing the future of our relationship with Mission Arlington, Mission Metroplex, and excited about that. Grateful for the work they do. They're going to have a big week this week with Thanksgiving and the Christmas season coming, and it's been a big part of our church. And then, yesterday, I don't know, I was trying to remember when I first came here, if we ever had Hanging of the Greens or Hanging of the Green. We did that in Huntsville. Maybe we didn't do that here, but I don't think.
They said that they did. Donna and Peggy were reminding me of a time that they did years.
Maybe they did that when I first came here. I can hardly remember. But we've not done anything like this in a long time. So
No.
Yesterday was great.
It was such a fun event. The orchestra was going around playing Christmas music.
It was real sweet.
It was great.
We got in the Christmas spirit, even though Thanksgiving hasn't happened yet. But this coming Sunday, we knew.
My wife would tell you the turkey tastes the same with the tree up.
I love it. Thank you, Kelsey.
Okay, well, Cindy will not allow that at our house, so I have no idea if that's true or not. So
I might align more with Cindy.
We have to go one holiday at a time with Cindy Wiles. That's how it works.
Be efficient. Get it all up at one time.
I even said something to her this week. I said, honey, this is like the
It's the
latest
last possible
Thanksgiving can be. And so we could go ahead, I think, and just start putting up Christmas decorations. And she said, and you want me to take down all these Thanksgiving decorations before Thanksgiving? No. I was like, yeah, I probably wouldn't do that if I were you. I'm good. So we'll wait.
So you have two different philosophies on Christmas decor and Thanksgiving.
That's right. And somehow Cindy wins. But in y'all's house, y'all do whatever y'all want to do. You already have your tree up?
Sadly, no. I would already have it up, but...
Yeah. So it doesn't bother you to put it up before Thanksgiving?
No, because...
Maybe we need to conduct a quick poll. If you would write us at 817... I have no idea. But
817. Please don't text me.
No, I'm sorry. Whether or not you already have your decorations up, and then let us judge you based upon our perspectives here.
Well, I grew up with movies on they're serving Thanksgiving, and they had the Christmas trees up, and so I love that.
Yeah. Okay. Those movies were not filmed at our house.
Regardless, the other unique thing about Sunday morning is you were here.
Yes.
But you did not preach.
I know. It's just the weirdest thing. So, And what's even weirder, I agreed to it. I agreed to have
It was your idea.
a guest preacher in my church while I'm actually physically present.
It was a
You made it
powerful
sound like
message.
Elijah Brown twisted your arm.
No. Yes, we had Elijah Brown, the General Secretary of the Baptist World Alliance, yesterday, and he's a powerful communicator.
He is. He did a great job.
He is.
But I'm a dummy. What exactly is the Baptist World Alliance? And how are we a part of it? What does that mean for us as a church?
Excuse me. Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, at the turn of the century,
Which century?
In the turn of the 20th century,
Okay.
there were a group of Baptist leaders who felt like we needed to have some type of worldwide communion of Baptists.
Was this in the year 1905? I looked it up.
I think so, somewhere in there, early
Well
1900s. And you had the growth of Baptists. When America was settled, if you go back and look at that period in history, the Baptists in America were very small at the time. The Congregationalists and Methodists were much larger than Baptists. However, once the gospel started to spread across the frontier, as they would have called it,
Ohio.
for whatever reason, the Baptist just message resonated with Americans. There's probably a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot of individualism in the Baptist approach to things, and it's low church. And what I mean by that is it's not Roman Catholic or Anglican in how it's organized. So it kind of fit with that frontier spirit going across, like you said, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, down into places like Georgia and Alabama and Mississippi. Well, it just grew like crazy. And what's interesting is back on the other side of the ocean where we actually came from, it began to grow as well. For whatever reason, and so the Baptist witness began to grow across Europe while it was growing here in the U.S. Much more so in the U.S. probably, at least initially. So by the time you get to the early 20th century, there really is a worldwide movement known as Baptists, but no one had come to the place. There have been all different types of organizational structures for Baptists. There have been the Triennial Convention, and you had Baptists who organized themselves geographically in the U.S. and those kinds of things. But eventually, there was just a desire to connect us all worldwide. And so in the early 1900s, the idea of aligning Baptists together to do ministry and mission work together is where it all kind of came from. And so today, the Baptist World Alliance is the single largest, I think I could probably say maybe the single largest evangelical body in the world. And it's certainly the largest Baptist body in the world. And what's interesting is, depends on how you want to count. We say we have 51 million members in the Baptist World Alliance. But Baptists don't count their children and young children as a part of their membership. Now, so when you look at the statistics of Roman Catholics or Orthodox or Anglicans or Presbyterians or Methodists, once that baby is baptized, they become a member of the communion. Now, obviously, they've got to go through confirmation, whatever the process is, but they're already counted in their numbers.
Right.
And so I can remember when Denton Lotz used to be the head of the Baptist World Alliance, he used to say that all the time. He'd say, no, we don't have 50 million Baptists. We have about 110 million Baptists, because he would say, if we're going to count them the way everybody else counts. So if you were to use Denton's math, you're probably talking about over 100 million people that are part of this movement.
Makes sense.
And so they gather around several agreed upon emphases. Like, for example, I think they're best known for a couple things in particular. They're best known for what we call world aid. The Baptist World Alliance is very much involved in providing humanitarian aid in the troubled places across the world, war-torn places across the world. They're also known for being staunch defenders of religious liberty. The Baptist World Alliance has probably produced some of the best material, curriculum, and also lobbying in various governments for religious liberty. And so, when I first got involved with the Baptist World Alliance, Denton Lotz was the general secretary. Now it's Elijah Brown. But the people in that position have been frequent guests of presidents of countries, prime ministers of countries, and they've met with heads of state all over the world because they lobby for religious liberty in every nation in the world and stand for it. They also do theological education, provide opportunities for worship and fellowship and community, and so every year they have these commissions and committees that work on these various emphases, whatever it might be. And then every year they have an annual meeting, but every 5 years they have what they call a World Congress, where they bring all the world leaders from all the Baptist families together somewhere in the world. And we come together for community and fellowship, but also to learn from one another, to learn what the key issues are that our Baptist brothers and sisters are facing across the world. And I've been to a couple of those, and Cindy and I are planning on going in 2025. And the cool thing about it is that one of the things I like about it is when you gather together with those people, first of all, you meet some of the most incredible leaders that you're just ever going to know. And some of them serving in really challenging, difficult areas. And so their theology is shaped so often by what they've been through, the context in which they've lived. And what I love about the BWA is those folks who live in many of those places in the world are given a voice at the World Congress.
I love that.
To invite us in to what it's really like, where they're living. So, for example, I went to 2 years ago, the annual gathering was in Birmingham, Alabama. And so Cindy and I went for several reasons. It's a good town to be from is one thing.
As you say.
Yes. But there were a couple of people that we knew were going to be there we wanted to hear. And so one of the men that spoke is the vice president of the Baptist Union of the Ukraine. And, of course, we're in the middle of this awful war. It had just really gotten going. It was about a year ago, I guess, year and a half, maybe it's 2 years ago, I can't remember. But just to sit and listen to the testimony of this Baptist leader describing to us what it was like to have their churches, bombed, their seminary destroyed, and how they were choosing to respond to the situation they were in. So our church, as y'all know, we decided we would try to invest financially, which we did. We gave $125,000 for it. Well, that money was put immediately into use because the Baptist churches that were still open in parts of the country that weren't being attacked in the war, they became the places of refuge. And then even the surrounding nations, the Baptist churches became the gathering spots for the refugees. And so we have Elijah sent me photos of when you come into the Hungarian border. There were big signs at the train station in multiple languages saying, "Go to such and such Baptist church for your next staging area." So you have this host of women and children, primarily elderly people, coming out of Ukraine. And their first stop, and the governmental leaders were acknowledging the fact that this is a place to go, it's safe, and they will help you get placed. That happened in Romania and various other places across Europe. And the Baptist World Alliance sponsors all that, and then when you come to the World Congress, you get to hear from some of those leaders who have truly lived in some of the most challenging places in the world. And it's a time of fellowship and communion, and it also opens your eyes to just how big the family is. It's a little overwhelming to be in a room with several thousand Baptist leaders, and they all represent so many congregations and so many people that you really feel like you're a part of this many million people movement. And you can be a part of whatever branch of this you want to get involved in. If you're interested in missions and ministry, if you're interested in worship, if you're interested in theological education, if you're interested in world aid, if you're interested in religious liberty, all that's there, for the taking, if you will. And so depending upon what your interests are, you've got missional leaders and missiologists from the Baptist family, literally from across the world. You've got theological educators there from across the world. You've got these ardent supporters of religious liberty. You've got people who are living under tyranny and all kinds of challenging governmental types of relationships. And so the last one I went to was in Hawaii, and it was just the festive celebration of so many different types of Baptists. And it just reminded me also of just how diverse Baptists are. So on the one hand, when people in America hear the word Baptist, they have this idea that we're all the same. Baptists we're known for what we don't do. We don't gamble, we don't drink, we don't dance, we don't have any
I don't drink and I don't chew and I don't go with girls who
That's
do.
exactly right. Everything we're against.
You're a Pentecostal.
No, I didn't see that. I've never heard that.
That's kind of the view, and also some people in the West view the Baptist as kind of the angry fundamentalist voice that's always calling you into account. When actually Baptists are very diverse, and they're certainly very diverse across the world. And so it's a humbling thing. And so you can be a part of it as an official convention of churches. You can be an association of churches. You can be the theological institution. You can just be an individual Baptist. Or you can be an individual Baptist church. All of those are eligible to be members of the Baptist World Alliance. And so our church, we are a part of the Baptist General Convention of Texas. It's a member of the Baptist World Alliance, but our individual church is a member of the Baptist World Alliance. And so I'd say about every 4 or 5 years, we actually get a certificate from the Baptist World Alliance acknowledging our financial support. That's one of the ways we support.
It's one of our cooperative giving partners.
So we'll get a certificate from them thanking us for being a contributing church. And then we have church members who serve on various commissions and councils they have through the years. Dr. Wade has done that. Dr. Bob Garrett currently serves on one of those. I've served on one or two during the years. And so it's a great community of people. And Elijah Brown, the general secretary, he's been doing this, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. I'm not even sure how long Elijah's been doing it, however long. Elijah's a Texan. And so years ago, there was a president of the Baptist World Alliance. His name was David Coffey. He was from England, and I got to know David. He actually preached in our church back in Alabama. David had this idea that we should cultivate 40 Baptist leaders who were young and introduce them to this idea of the World Communion of Baptists. And we had a very wealthy benefactor in Texas Baptist life back in those days. His name was John Ball. And Mr. Ball financed a lot of Baptist work across the world. Like you'll see his name on many, many things. Like you went to church seminary. Well, the seminary is on the Ball
Reynolds campus.
So Mr. Ball came to these leaders and said, I want to put a fund together, and I want to let this fund pay for these young pastors to go to the Baptist World Alliance meetings. And that was done in concert with David Coffey's vision that they would secure 40 young leaders and introduce them to the communion and get them to become a part of this communion of Baptists. Well, Elijah was one of those 40 young leaders that was chosen. And so he was educated in the Baptist family, if you will, in that regard. He ended up teaching at East Texas Baptist University and became a part of the Baptist World Alliance. And then eventually has worked his way to where he is today now as the general secretary. So he's one of the most, he was someone who was singled out when he was a young man, if that makes sense, for future leadership in the BWA, and that has come to fruition. He did his PhD at University of Edinburgh, and he is an expert in issues of justice and liberty. And so he's an incredible voice for us.
That's amazing.
So he actually texted me and said his parents live here in the Metroplex, and he said, I would like to come and thank First Baptist for this generous gift, and I want to give an update on how it's been used in the Ukraine, because they've been helping to establish new churches and develop a theological training pipeline for new pastors. Because they're in a war, and some of them have been killed. Some of them have been serving as chaplains on the front lines. So it's been a really challenging thing. And so the money that we gave was used to open one of the churches on the border, one of the churches in Hungary, that some of our workers actually helped with. Kind of a small world that some of Ashley's workers that she oversees actually helped in that effort in Hungary. But also they were using the money to develop this theological education plan without a formal seminary, if you will. And so he wanted to come tell us thank you. Well, and when he showed me when he wanted to come, it was the last Sunday Missions Month. And I just said, why don't you just preach that Sunday? And it's funny, he wrote me and he said, well, tell me what's going on. So I sent him our material, our plan. And he wrote me back, and we ended up talking on the phone several times, but I just asked him if he'd preach, and he just said, one of my favorite things to do is to talk about Acts 13 and use that to teach, if I can, about what we're doing today in the Baptist World Alliance and in missiology. Well, that was the text I had already chosen for this Sunday that he didn't know. And once he saw all that,
it's almost like someone's planning all of this.
I was going to say, it's not a coincidence.
So it ended up, we were laughing on the phone about it, that the Lord had arranged all this. And so he got to do both. He got to thank us, as we heard yesterday, an update. We've had 20,000 new believers since the war started. 500 new pastors have been ordained to the ministry. Mm-hmm. And our church has helped to support that effort to help train those pastors. So he wanted to tell us thank you. But then he preached a powerful message from Acts 13. And,
he did.
Yeah, and took a little different tack than I did. I talked about the diversity and the cultural competency. He chose to choose the fact that these men were persecuted migrants and showed up in Antioch. None of them are from Antioch. Mm-hmm. They showed up in Antioch as migrants and as a persecuted minority. And God used them to launch the worldwide Christian mission effort, which is pretty incredible, really.
It is.
Mm-hmm. So what would you like to add to that message or unpack it?
Yeah. Well, I think to me it just reminded me that life isn't lived evenly, that the Holy Spirit is really the missiologist, because this was not a strategic move. It's not like these guys got together and said, okay, if we're going to go and launch, first of all, a mission effort to Gentiles, and second of all, launch a worldwide Christian movement, where do y'all think we should go? Well, let's do a study of the ancient world and make a determination. Maybe Antioch. That's not what happened. They're basically fleeing for their lives. Right. They're just trying to get away from this Jewish persecution. And I'm sure there was a lot of uncertainty, because how far do you need to go, to get away from the Jewish persecution? Obviously, the further away from Jerusalem, I'm sure the thought was maybe the safer you are. But I would also add, I'm sure they probably wondered, well, how's the Roman government going to view us if our own people are persecuting us? How because the Romans hated unrest. That was just that to them was the antithesis of a civilized society. And so how's that going to go? What kind of news has already gotten from Jerusalem to Antioch, about them, those kinds of things. And so what's 300 miles? I forgot how long, 800 miles. I can't remember how far it is to Antioch. So evidently they decided this is far enough. There's enough Jewish presence in Antioch to where you could find probably some familial connections and all that. Mm-hmm. But they decided they were far enough away from the persecution. So they really are migrants. They really are people on the move, like Elijah said. And the fact that this thing none of them probably would have chosen this for themselves. And I don't think it was necessarily strategic. It's just what the Spirit of God led them to do. And so they find themselves in a less than situation by every imaginable measure. And that's when they become the most effective for the gospel. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's one of the things I was thinking yesterday while he was talking. I was thinking, isn't it funny that I always think you've got to be in the most than, not the less than situation, and you have to be the most strategic so that you can be the most effective. I'm not arguing that we don't need to be thoughtful and all that. I'm just saying that the Spirit of God sometimes takes these less than experiences and transforms them in a way that only He can, and you become incredibly effective. I was actually talking with Dr. Wade a little bit about not this, but it was a different conversation, but it had some similarities. And Dr. Wade told me, he's our pastor emeritus, for those of you who don't know Dr. Wade. He said in his life, as he looks back over it, the most profound movements of God and the times were on the heels of it, he's been the most effective have been times of suffering and just being discombobulated in life. In other words, those experiences helped shape him. And on the other side of them is when he found seasons of incredible effectiveness. Mm. So I was thinking that yesterday as well when I was just thinking back about Acts 13. I had chosen, look at how diverse these people are. Look at how that matched the city. Look at how that compares to where we are. We need to think about diversity and cultural competency.
Which is still true.
It is absolutely true. But Elijah took it a step further by saying, well, actually, they were migrants and they were in less than circumstances.
Yeah.
And God still used that, even after major setbacks.
And I think one of the ways that you could think about this playing out, I'm thinking about Ashley and I were in Montreal this spring. French-speaking Canadians, less than 2% of them are evangelical, less than 4% are Christian of any kind. But one of the ways that they're actually seeing hope for the future of Christianity, particularly in French-speaking Canada, is French-speaking Christians coming from Africa, because there are countries in Africa that speak French, or French Caribbeans coming to Montreal and actually infusing new life through migration into the church. So you have basically French-speaking Afro-Caribbeans and Africans coming to Canada, and they're bringing the gospel with them.
Canada.
Yeah. Of all places.
Right.
But that's where they're actually seeing hope for the future of the church, because you have these people who are basically vibrantly living faith, speak the language, may not have all of the same culture, but they can actually make that quick inroad.
There's a lot of lessons in all this that we can learn, I think, from our global brothers and sisters who are displaced and are on the journey and migrating elsewhere is when you're in a position of privilege and opportunity and a safety. What does it mean for us to provide a welcoming, hospitable environment and posture towards them, because it can get pretty uncomfortable. I mean, I'm worked with asylum seekers for many years, 15 years. And, each situation is different and unique, but the Lord is with them, and He wants to use us in providing space and access, but also to learn from them, because He is meeting them and He wants to also journey with them and us together. And so my question is, what does that look like for us here and now?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, one of the things that I've learned, but I was thinking even yesterday while Elijah was preaching about how different our context is, because these people in Acts 13, Christianity is brand new. And so, they're overwhelmingly outnumbered. And I would assume that the hospitality that was extended toward them in Antioch was done by fellow Jews. That's just my assumption, that they show up there from Jerusalem and there is a Jewish population in Antioch. It just stands to reason that's kind of where you probably would have gone, and maybe even had some family connections, who knows. And so, but they were in such a different setting, because what they were bringing to Antioch was not in Antioch. They're bringing the gospel, which is not there yet, and so it's a little different. So I would say, though, for us, when we're in these places of privilege, as you just said, Ashley, the posture to me is one of helping, but it's also one of being humble enough to learn.
Yeah.
It's almost sometimes I think we view ourselves as the heroes in the story, and we're the ones that are going to rescue you out of your plight, when actually their faith has been so challenged and they've lived on edge for so long, they really can teach us what Christianity and what even humanity is actually all about, and it just changes the posture. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn, because I kind of grew up with a colonial view of missions, not necessarily because I think it was forced on me growing up, or it was viewed as that somehow I was viewing myself as better than anyone else. I'm just saying the way we heard the stories,
right,
and the way everything was always viewed. And back in those days, when I was coming along, we didn't do mission trips back then. So it wasn't like the church gathered up and went to Japan, or we waited for them, the missionaries, to come to us and tell us all the stories. And we were the heroes, and that's how we viewed the world. And so even when I first started, I believe in my journey in mission, I had that, y'all should be glad we showed up. I am so sorry it's been like this for you so long, but we've showed up now. Let me show you. We're not just going to help you be better Christians. We're going to show you how to live, And it was funny to me how the Lord reversed that in me pretty quickly, because I started admiring these people that welcomed me into their culture. And I started realizing I have so much to learn.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing is true now if they're coming into my culture. I mean, like Elijah said yesterday, we're living in an era where there are more immigrants today than any other time in history. Global migration is it's at a level it's never been at.
Yeah.
And we're the second leading state of the population of immigrants in the state of Texas, which it stands to reason. Texas is viewed as a place of opportunity. It's huge, very diverse now, and a lot of economic opportunity. So that doesn't surprise me. And there are people who intentionally place people in Texas for those reasons. And so I think we adopt that posture, to me, as Christians, of welcoming strangers and also learning from them.
What if global migration is one of the biggest gifts to the church of this age?
Yeah, it's amazing how it's infused life into the West. I remember reading articles, been 3 or 4 years ago. I forgot how many of these churches it listed, but it was listing the largest churches in the major cities in Europe, and almost all of them were immigrant churches.
Yeah.
Like you would read about. I was reading about some church in London pastored by this Nigerian.
The largest Baptist church in Canada is a Chinese Baptist church.
It's fascinating, and so. We have much to learn,
we do.
I would say. And Ashley, you've been really good at trying to help us see that. It's adopting that posture of humility. And so yeah, when Elijah was preaching yesterday, first of all, I had to get over the fact that somebody else preaching in my church while I'm here. Okay. But I did it to myself. In fact, what's funny is Saturday night, Julio Guarneri, who was here yesterday, he's the executive director of Texas Baptist. He texted me and said, are you really turning your pulpit over to Elijah Brown tomorrow? And I wrote him back. I said, yeah, I'm having second thoughts actually Saturday night, and I'm trying to figure out what am I doing. And anyway, so he was just joking, and he said, well, obviously he said a lot of respect for Elijah. I said, why don't y'all come, and you and Monica? And he said, well, we're planning on it. And so yesterday it was kind of a convergence of some of the leaders in our Baptist family when it comes to missions. Elijah Brown was preaching. Sergio Ramos is a member of our church, and he is the new leader of GC2, which is a mission effort for Texas Baptists, and has been the immediate past president of the Hispanic Baptist Convention.
Right.
And Julio Guarneri, who is the new executive director for Texas Baptists, were all at our church yesterday.
And you are sitting on the steering committee. You chair the steering committee for Ascent.
And so we all four go to lunch together, and we had some interesting conversation about the future of mission.
Which Ascent is for the re-evangelization of North America.
That is correct. And so,
in case you didn't know,
and you can go to ascentmovement.org and learn more about Ascent.
Great website.
But it was fascinating yesterday for us we had about a 2-hour lunch, and but a lot of conversation around how interesting it is to be in these positions of leadership right now. Not 20 years ago, but right now, and how much things have changed, and how we're all adopting a posture of humility and learning. We all talked about that because we all feel like it's a moment in time, and that we want to capitalize on, and we believe there's a new, fresh movement of God taking place. Well, on the one hand, it feels strategic. I mean, it can be, should be, but on the other hand, it almost feels orchestrated by the Spirit, because there's so many things that have happened around us that we would have never dreamed up on our own. We just wouldn't have. And yet they've happened right in front of us. And it's created a climate, I think, of dialogue and conversation and openness. And y'all know, you're working now with me with Ascent. You're seeing that. You're seeing the open spirit, the open hands that people have that are coming together in this centrist space, as we call it. And finding a lot of commonality.
We have our gathering in March, and I wake up almost every day excited to go see people that I've met over the past few years who are Methodist leaders, Pentecostal leaders, and I'm just ready to go and be with them.
He's ready to get those plane tickets all the time. It's the task list on our to-do.
And it's exciting. I mean,
just got to get it done.
when we have a leadership meeting for Ascent in December, and we've got like 12 new groups that have petitioned for membership. And it's just, we're just watching this movement grow. And what's funny is everybody knows it's still in wet cement. I mean, everybody knows that we're still trying to formulate exactly, pragmatically how it's going to work. And those are the people that are coming to the table, the ones that are coming saying, great, we want to be in on that, because we don't want it to be some stodgy, institutionalized entity that we've all come from. We still are going to support the things that are important to us, but we want to bring some fresh energy and fresh vision and leadership to something new. And I'll tell you what's one of the reasons I've been encouraged in it is those of us on the leadership council, there's like 20 of us, I think, I can't remember, 21 or 2. Every time we plan a meeting, pretty much everybody comes. You don't have to make a bunch of phone calls and say, hey man, we really need you to be there. Even this meeting, it's in December. Mm-hmm. I told our director when we talked about the meeting, we were originally going to have it early in November. We thought, okay, that way the pastors that are on it and others can come and then go back home and you got all the holidays and, you can do Thanksgiving, Advent and all that. Well, there were 3 or 4 guys that just couldn't make it then for various reasons. So we kept pushing it back. So finally we landed in the middle of December. And we all said, this is the worst time for us to have a meeting. Okay. You're right in the middle of Advent. You got children's and grandchildren's programs and you got all these family events and things at your church. But we said, but this is really important and we're all coming. Mm. And so that, as the chair of that group, that sends a powerful message to me that this matters to people. And so I'm excited about it. And yesterday to me was an affirmation, just sitting with those various leaders who sense the energy of it and they want to bring energy to it as well. And our church is in on the ground floor and y'all are serving in respective areas in a sense. You two are. And Katie's about to join you in one of them. And excuse me, Cindy's on the council with me. So we're all finding our way in this, and I think it's awesome. And I think it shows us, on the one hand, we have some, traditional connections as a church. Our church does when it comes to missions and
Tarrant County Baptist Association.
That's right. Our church is in a geographical location. We're in Tarrant County. Baptists in America, one of their core ways to associate and work alongside each other is geographical. So we're in the Tarrant Baptist Association. So we cooperate with other Tarrant Baptist churches, and we provide a lot of support for smaller churches to get training and those kinds of things that are available to them through the Tarrant Baptist work, and we're grateful for it. We're part of the Baptist General Convention of Texas. That's really our main identity. We're Texas Baptists, and I love being a part of the BGCT. To me, it is a centrist, conservative, evangelical Baptist convention of churches. And I love the mission work that we do all over the state of Texas, and the institutional support that we provide. There was a Texas Baptist decided to start these colleges and universities all over the state and train young people from a Christian perspective in every field imaginable. That was a brilliant decision, if you think about it, because right now our churches all over Texas, really all over the U.S., are filled with people who are lawyers and doctors and homemakers and teachers and engineers and accountants, and pick a field, and they've been educated in Baptist institutions all over the state. I think that was a brilliant move, and we have Baptist campus ministries on every college campus in the state of Texas. Texas Baptists do. We have chaplains in all the prisons. We work in all the main hospital networks all over the state of Texas. We have chaplains in the military. There's, I think, 1,100 now chaplains that are Texas Baptist chaplains serving actively in the U.S. military. And so,
and
Texas,
border ministry.
And border ministry. I mean, Texas Baptists, I'm proud to be a Texas Baptist. I believe in what we're doing. It gets a little more challenging when you leave Texas in terms of how we're continue to relate, because a lot has changed on the horizon nationally and internationally. But the good news is the Lord has given us partners that we believe in and that we trust, and so we're still connected to them. Ascent is the newest one, though, and it's one that, as you said, Luke, we're aimed at re-evangelizing North America. Well, that gives us a North American presence that's really blanketing the continent. I mean, we've developed partnerships in Canada, and some of the alliances that we're building with multiple denominations now through Ascent, that covers areas in the U.S. where sometimes Baptist work is very small, but there are other partners that are joining Ascent that we can work through. Disaster relief, Texans on Mission has joined Ascent, and so we have a disaster relief mechanism that we're connected to now. And then our global centers, Ashley, that you oversee, across the world. And then the Baptist World Alliance, and our partnership with them. So the Lord has opened a lot of doors for us, and I think we have enough room to be connected to those things that we have been connected to traditionally, but also some of the new is in front of us. But I will say this, because I know we're getting close to closing out here. I just want to remind everybody who listens or watches, I think sometimes you think when you go through, Elijah's word yesterday was the word setback. When you go through experiences where life is just so uneven, and it's really easy to wonder, is God paying attention? Does God care? Can God still use me? Is there anything in front of me? If you're reading behind the lines, so to speak, or underneath this text, and you go back to see where these people came from, persecuted in Acts 13, run out of town, who all did they leave behind wherever they were? I don't know. Their families, their friends, their livelihoods. They were unsettled. And in the middle of all that, they found their place in the kingdom of God. And so just because you may find yourself in an unsettled place today, or you may find yourself where you've just been through a setback, or you've gone through a period of where you're now on the move, maybe not geographically, but you're on the move. We've been talking about rebuilding. To me, this was just a good reminder. God uses people in the midst of those experiences, and He can redeem them. And who knows the life that's on the other side of them. And so it was just I felt very encouraged yesterday because I know it was a missiological message, but it felt very pastoral to me.
It was a good one.
So, yeah.
Well, everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for celebrating Missions Month with us. I'm excited for Advent, but I'm always sad to see Missions Month end. Every month is Missions Month.
I was about to say.
The daily rhythm.
It is. It's a daily rhythm.
Behold your Creator.
Amen.
So, but thanks for listening. Thanks for being with us. I'm excited for Advent. It's such a wonderful season. So remember to invite your friends. We have kept the ping pong ball display out, so keep praying for people, keep talking to Jesus, talking about Jesus with people, and inviting people into discipleship, and keep kind of making note of that with those ping pong balls.
There's about 700 of them in that display right now.
Which is
pretty awesome.
About 1,400 people then, if you think about it.
Praise God.
Okay, well, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Tell Me More podcast today. You can subscribe to this podcast on your app of choice, or you can visit us at fbca.org to find out more information about the podcast and our church. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.